Joe Veneto, Chief Experience Officer, Veneto Collaboratory. I'm excited to introduce another NSA member to speak to us. In fact, some of you might remember that Joe did speak to us when we were live. With decades of experience in the tourism industry, Joe specializes in destination development, placemaking, and creating unforgettable experiences. He's known for his collaboration with destination management organizations such as convention visitors bureaus, state and provincial tourism offices, regional tourism associations, and economic development agencies and travel corporations. Before launching his business, formerly known as Opportunities Unlimited, Joe spent 18 years shaping the travel world with Colette Tours and Grand Circle Travel. His work involved developing and designing escorted tours across North America and internationally, reaching eager travelers in both the US and Canada. Now, through his company, he partners with destinations all over North America, helping them design remarkable experience for leisure visitors, groups, and locals. He pioneered the experience design studio process, transforming destinations' unique attributes into remarkable must-see experiences. The process has been a game changer for many cities and destinations, including Scottsdale, Houston, Louisville, Deadwood, and Richmond, BC. As a thought leader and sought after rock star speaker in tourism, every year Joe is invited to speak at to share his travel insights with the industry conventions, tourism conferences, national associations, and economic development agencies. Before becoming what some people consider the Patricia Fripp of the travel industry, Joe began his travel career escorting busloads of beautiful, blue-haired, bingo card-carrying women and a few men on tours throughout North America. His experience began a lifetime love affair with travel, which continues to inspire him today. So to discuss Bitten by the Travel Bug, enhancing your travel experience, my favorite travel partner, Joe Veneto.
Good morning, Breakfast Clubbers. I'm excited to be here this morning. Let me get my... So my question this morning is, have you ever been bitten by the travel bug? Do you remember the first time? Where did you go? For me, I was a freshman at Boston College High School, a Jesuit school located in Dorchester, Massachusetts. I burst in the door one brisk October day with my brown book bag over my shoulder. I said, "Hi, Mom, I'm home." She said, "Hello, Joseph, how was your day?" I said, "Great, Mom, I had a great day." And she said, "Have you got any homework?" I said, "I have tons of Latin vocabulary." But the Jesuits, I gave me this blue flyer, and they're going to Italy next April. It's 10 days, 8 nights. They're going to see Rome, Florence, Capri, Sorrento, and Naples. The trip, it includes hotels, sightseeing, and meals, and it's $299. Now, being the oldest of 8, vacations at the Veneto household consisted each summer of going away to a cabin on Plum Island that was given to my parents by family friends. It had electricity, but not hot and cold running water. And my mother said, "Would you like to go?" And I said, "Could I? Do you think I could go?" And she said, "Well, have you got the money?" And I said, "Well, Mom, it's October, and by next April, with my paper route and shagging carriages at the grocery store, I should have enough." April 1972, and I know some of you were there, passport in hand, I was on a plane to Italy, and I will tell you, my life was transformed. I was not only bitten by the travel bug, I was smitten by the travel bug. I got back to Boston College High School, and a month after my return, it was time to pick classes for my sophomore year. One of the requirements was a second language, and the choices were Russian, German, Spanish, or French. Well, for me, it was a foregone conclusion. It had to be French. You see, the Jesuits had an exchange program for students in their junior year, at the end of the junior year in high school, and you could live in France with a French family on an exchange program. At 15 years old, I was already planning my next travel adventure. I was fortunate my junior year to be selected as one of 11 students going to a French school for the last 3 months of my junior year. I landed with 3 of my classmates in Lyon, France, the gastronomic center of the country. I was popped down with a French family. My exchange brother was number 6 of 9, and I was the oldest of 8. Now, I would tell you, for 6 weeks, I was completely and utterly lost because I had less than 2 years of high school French. And all of a sudden, something clicked. And not only was I speaking in French, I was also dreaming in French. It was unbelievable. Here's a picture of being in Lyon, 1974. I'm the guy on the left with the mop of red hair, and it was an unforgettable experience. Well, that unforgettable experience in France led to my college years, where I studied and majored in French and minored in Spanish. And 4 years later, during the summer between my junior year and my senior year in college, I went back to spend the summer with my French family again, who had moved from Lyon to just outside of Paris. I ended up landing a stage or an internship with the French Electric Company. And each day I would take the train in from Viroflay, come up from Place Charles de Gaulle, as you see here, come up the escalator, walk down the Champs-Élysées, take a left to Avenue Friedland to my office, and I would pinch myself every day saying, "This is amazing," at 22 years of age. The college break between my senior years in college, I happened to have a chance meeting with one of my classmates from BC High, who told me about the perfect job for a travel junkie. My buddy George Asher said he was going to spend the summer taking people on tours throughout the United States and Canada. And I said, "Where can I sign up?" I got a job with Colette Tours and their subsidiary, Young's Travel. And they gave me a bag of bingo cards and some songbooks. And little did I know, I would spend my time with busloads of blue-haired bingo card carrying women and a few men on motor coach tours and air tours throughout the United States. Now, one of my preferred destinations was Quebec because I spoke French. And so I would teach my passengers a little bit of French language so that they could communicate with the Quebecois. My second trip was off to the Amish country of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And I'm sure many of you have been there. The second day of our trip, we were doing all things Amish with local guide Mary Alice Brubaker. We started at the farmer's market where we saw the Amish and they were selling goods and crafts and produce. We ended up then going to the Amish homestead where we saw a replica of an Amish home, but there were no Amish people. And we even spent the afternoon chasing Amish buggies. Well, at lunchtime, Mary Alice asked me if I wanted to stop at Mrs. Peterson's house. And I said, well, who is she? And she said, well, she's an Amish person. And I said, well, is she really an Amish woman or does she just dress that way? I mean, I was a little skeptic. We had not really interacted. And she said, oh, no. She said, she's a real Amish person. Well, at 5 o'clock, we pulled up to an Amish farmhouse and Mary Alice went in and out she came with Mrs. Peterson. They both got on the coach. Mrs. Peterson picked up the microphone and she started speaking in Pennsylvania Dutch because the Amish are originally from Germany. She told us about her family, her farm, Amish customs. It was amazing. There was complete and utter silence. Then she said, I will be right back. She ran into the house, came back with 3 baskets full of sugar cookies wrapped in wax paper. And she proceeded to go up and down the coach and sell every last cookie. She was an Amish entrepreneur, but she taught me an incredible lesson that day. It's all about the experience. And so I realized that hearing for the next 3 days, people talk about nothing but this little Amish woman, that I needed to replicate this experience and experiences like it. And so 3 days before I would go to the Amish country, I'd call Mary Alice and say, look, stop by Mrs. Peterson's, tell her to save 3 baskets of sugar cookies because Joe is coming. Well, I spent 18 years in the tourism industry, 16 of it with Colette, 2 with Grand Circle Travel, and most of that time was designing and developing tour itineraries that could be sold to US and Canadian customers. But during the designing and the developing of those experiences, I was looking for and creating unique, unforgettable experiences that would give each of these companies an edge. In 1994, I went to Grand Circle Travel. It was the advent of the small ship cruise industry. Small ship cruises had started in European waterways, and my job was to prove that this was a viable option to take land and small ship cruises and wrap them together. We created a Grand Slam experience opening up the Russian waterways by flying through Finland and going from Moscow to St. Petersburg on a small ship cruise to ensure that Americans' level of comfort and quality in travel was available to them. On the strength of that dry test, as we called it, Grand Circle built a series of small ship cruise lines that they are still using today around the world. In 1996, I launched my own company called Opportunities Unlimited, and I became the opportunity guy. And as you see here, I had red hair at the time and incidentally ended up at a networking meeting hearing about this organization called NSA, the National Speakers Association. And it was one of the reasons that it transformed my business. I had to create a unique style, a unique persona, I spoke about travel. And so some of the pictures you see here are me in a baseball uniform, old style baseball uniform. And the program was called Getting Turned On in the Off Season, Creating Experiences. And then the Star Trek uniform was Unforgettable Experiences, Create Unforgettable Opportunities for you and your business. Since 2002, at Veneto Collaboratory, I have been working with destinations throughout North America, focusing on experienced junkie travelers. You see, I knew from those early days of Mrs. Peterson that it was all about two things. It was about the experience and it was about the people. And that experience world continues to grow. In fact, I like to say that experiences are the currency of 21st century consumers, and savvy travelers who are experience junkies want experiences. Those experiences are unique, authentic experiences that connect to the heart, the soul, and the people of the destinations that they visit. Now, I'm going to ask you to think for a moment as you're thinking about a future destination or a vacation, what's important to you? I believe that travelers looking at destinations ask the question to themselves, what's in your snow globe? Now, snow or not, what they're interested in is what are the experiences we can have? Will they be fun? And what memories can we collect? In fact, experiences today are the driving force before a destination is even selected. Now, some of you may be thinking, well, what is it about experiences and why are they so impactful? And I believe it's because of the concept of emotional bank accounts. You see, as human beings, we travel the world with emotional bank accounts. And whenever we meet a new person, do business with a new company or organization, or visit a destination, we open that emotional bank account. And what happens is the connections, emotions, and the feelings tied to those connections get put into that emotional bank account. Those connections create deposits in our emotional bank account. And those emotional bank accounts ultimately fill those bank accounts. When full bank accounts occur, what happens? Customers create commercials. I like to say that they boast and post. They either tell other people or they post online on social media, which is why it's important that we use social media, particularly in the travel industry, but also for our own personal brand. These customer commercials are generated by full emotional bank accounts. Now, I'd like to share with you how I look at experiences and give you a lens that you can use as you're creating your next vacation. You see, I believe that experiences can be divided into three different categories. Those categories are level 1, show and tell, level 2, engage, and level 3, immerse. Now, show and tell experiences are rather commodity. People ask themselves, well, can I get this other places? And do I have the time and the money to be able to do this? But engaging experiences keep people engaged, get them involved, bring them into the world of a visitor, a destination, an attraction. They're more valuable and people will pay more. And third, the immersion version of an experience is when you're completely immersed, you're actively involved in an experience, cooking classes, kayaking, or maybe with a reenactor. I'll give you a quick example. I'm going to take you back to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And Philadelphia is the world capital of outdoor murals. I worked there in 2004 with the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and we were looking to design experiences to get repeat travelers back to Philadelphia. We sat down with the Mural Arts Organization, which was started in 1985 to get rid of the graffiti in the city, and they decided to paint murals. They said, well, Joe, you can take a mural tour. And I said, well, that's sort of interesting, and thought to myself, a little interesting show and tell. And I said, but I would like to meet an artist and see their murals. And they said, well, we could probably do that. And I said, let's design that experience, which we did. And then I said, I want to paint a mural. And they got very nervous because they said, Joe, we're going to need extra insurance and scaffolding. It's going to be really difficult. And I said, well, we have to figure out how to do this. And they thought and they thought, and they said, well, you know, we've had murals that have been painted by incarcerated prisoners as a give back to the community. You see, each mural has a story. And what we do is we have an artist who sketches the mural on parachute cloth, and then as a paint by number, they paint the mural. The mural, once completed, leaves the prison. The prisoners stay in the prison, and the mural is adhered and sealed to the wall, and it looks exactly like a painted mural. They ended up in 2005 releasing 2 brand new experiences that were revenue producing: meet an artist and paint a mural. You see, I wanted my mural bragging right, and I knew other people would too. Well, fast forward 2007, then Prince Charles and Lady Camilla were coming to Philadelphia, and they contacted Mural Arts to say, could they take a tour? And they said, oh no, His Highness and Lady Camilla, we'd like them to paint a mural. I had no idea they were coming. I just wanted to paint a mural. Now, the formula that we use when we create experiences has 3 parts to it: create the connection, nurture the narrative, and find the feelings. What you want to do is you want to create connections throughout the entire experience that are memorable, filling the emotional bank accounts of your customer. However, you also want to tell your story, or tell a story not just about the experience that's unfolding, but about the company, the organization, or the brand. And finally, you want to connect with your customers at a visceral level to find the feelings. And when you do that, you hit the sweet spot for creating an unforgettable experience. I'm going to give you a couple of quick examples here. This is the Vanderbilt Mansion in Hyde Park, New York. We worked with them in 2007 on an experience called Servants to Stewards. When the Vanderbilts lived in the house at the turn of the 20th century, they had 19 servants in their employ. Now, I had met with the folks here at the Vanderbilt Mansion, and I had asked them if they had ever done anything special, unique behind the scenes. And they said, well, 3 years ago, we did a behind the scenes tour. And I said, well, how did it go? And they said, well, we had 500 people show up. And I said, well, that's amazing. And they said, well, no, we only had 40 spots. And I said, well, what did you do with the other 460 people? And they said, well, we told them that they couldn't go. I said, your market research was done. So we looked at the concepts and we created Servants to Stewards in 2007, 19 people at a time behind the scenes. You're given a card as to who you are: the book cook, the butler, the night watchman, the dish girl, and you're divided into a group depending on who you would have reported to in the house. You see only those areas of the house that you would have seen as a servant. This experience was released in 2007, and I just want to say this was pre-Downton Abbey. A Taste of the Museum, Minneapolis, Minnesota. This is an incredible museum. If you've ever been there, 5,000 years of human history, 80,000 objects, and how do you create an unforgettable experience? The experience is called A Taste of the Museum. And if you did this on the tour, without being on the tour, you would be arrested. But this is one of 15 magnificent works of art, and this is a special part of the tour where you actually get to run your hands down a Rodin sculpture. And this is one of the casts for the Burghers of Calais, which is a world famous Rodin sculpture. And they have one of the casts at the museum. Richmond, British Columbia. Richmond, BC is actually on the Pacific Flyway from South America to North America. And Birding 101 with Leron Gertzman ties to the essence of Richmond. He is a young guy who we worked with to create an amazing experience called Birding 101. And I will tell you, he knows lots about birds, Pacific Flyway, and how important they are to our overall health and environmental health. Scottsdale, Arizona, the Native Art Market. This is a Navajo family. They are the first indigenous family to own a store in Scottsdale, Arizona. It's called the Native Art Market. We created an experience with them. They are storytellers. They're fourth generation potters and craftspeople. You go in, meet the family, hear their stories, see some incredible dancers, and then you get to work with a crafts person. Now you may notice somebody special in this right-hand photo who is very determined making her bracelet with the Navajo craftspeople, your president. And then finally, if we've got a few minutes, I want to introduce you to Mr. Poupon Yu. Now, Mr. Poupon Yu, this is Barry Levinson, and he is the founder and the curator of the National Mustard Museum. Now, this is Poupon Yu as in Grey Poupon, and this is Barry with his collection, his world collection of mustard jars. Now, I know some of you are thinking, I didn't even know we had a National Mustard Museum. This is like the Smithsonian for mustard. Again, some of you are thinking, French's, Gouldens. I have to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, mustard has evolved. I need you to think artisanal. We worked with Barry, who was in love with his jars, and I said, dude, how did this happen? He said, well, Joe, I have to tell you, it was 1986. He said, I'm originally from Boston, but I live in Wisconsin. And he said, the Red Sox, the curse was almost broken with the Mets in 1986. He said, it was the seventh game. I was drinking heavily and they lost. I was so upset and I had the munchies. He said, I went to the grocery store looking for something to eat. And as I walked up and down the aisles, he said, I heard voices. It was coming from the condiment aisle. They said, if you collect us, they will come. And this is the start of the National Mustard Museum. And I thought, oh my word, how can I make mustard memorable? I said, Barry, it's not what's outside the jar, it's what's in the jar. And we created an experience called Mustard Bites, a culinary experience of food tastings from appetizers through dessert using different types of mustard. And as you see here, this is a group of happy mustardeers after Mustard Bites. So I want you to think about experiences that you can have and experience levels, because you see, a show and tell experience is a photo. An engaging experience is a story that you're going to tell, but an immersive experience is going to create lifelong memories like some of you shared earlier this morning. So I would like to say thank you, and I'm going to turn it back over to our host to see if we've got any questions or some observations to share.
Well, that was absolutely fabulous, Joe. And I didn't know I would have a starring part in one of the photos. But yes, I wanted to go shopping. I didn't, he made me do it and I loved every second of it. Yeah. Good. So I will begin the Q&A, and then when I have to go get my ride to the airport, Carl will take over. But Janice Litvin, who of course is a fellow NSAer, has the first question.
Joe, I just loved that wonderful immersive presentation. I also studied French and Spanish. As many of you know, my daughter-in-law is Colombian, and we went to Colombia, and that was definitely immersive last December and January because we were taken by natives. But the lessons you taught us today totally apply to speakers, as I'm sure my speaker friends in the room will tell you. And so it makes me think about how much more immersive I can make my presentations so they are memorable.
You're absolutely right, because as speakers, our job is to fill those emotional bank accounts of our customers so that they'll like us, that they'll hire us. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Joe, right now we would be very interested because you're working in the Bay Area.
Yes.
One of your projects is in. Tell us about that.
Yes. So right now I'm working in Sonoma County. So in February of 2025, we will be releasing unforgettable, uncorked experiences with Sonoma County Tourism. It's a collection of 9 different experiences. So 4 of them are unique experiences with wineries, but these are not just, pouring wine, but really getting underneath to understand the winemakers and the wineries in Dry Creek, in Healdsburg, which, as you all, from those of you that are here from the Bay Area, But in addition to that, we're also working with Zipline, Sonoma Ziplines, to create an indigenous experience in addition to their zip lining. We're also working in Petaluma with the Float House, and the Float House provides access to everybody with kayaks, canoes, all kinds of different floating vehicles. So it will include an amazing array of unique experiences that are engaging and immersive in February of 2025.
So you must be working with our friend Kurt Shaver at the Sonoma County.
So we're working, Claudia Vecchio is the CEO at Sonoma County Tourism. And so she and her group are the ones that are spearheading this.
Yeah.
All right. Joe, when I was with you in Phoenix to experience your lab, what I was very surprised about is how many small businesses and Tracy Hooper has a question next, but
Sure.
can you explain how, for example, Scottsdale got everybody, how do they work the program? Because to create, I'm not asking this very well, but tell us about what Scottsdale did, and then it's Tracy and then Bill Buchanan.
Sure. So Scottsdale, what typically happens and what Scottsdale did is they wanted to provide an opportunity for their partners, small businesses, solopreneurs, et cetera, to create a revenue producing experience, something over and above what they were currently doing. So for instance, the Native Art Market is a retail store, but they wanted to create a new revenue experience. And they realized that the flavor of Scottsdale isn't just in the big attractions like the Museum of the West or Frank Lloyd Wright's Taliesin West, which are great experiences. It's getting connected to the people and the small businesses and to hear their stories. So a big part of what we do is we uncover the story. And you heard this morning a little bit of my story. I can trace back my love of travel and my 30-plus year career to a blue flyer. And so, those stories, what they do is they create emotional connections, and those emotional connections with small businesses. I have to tell you, Barry Levinson, the guy has my credit card. I didn't even know I needed mustard, and I order mustard from him.
Tracy Hooper.
Thank you, Patricia. So tell us how much you use your French, and do you speak Italian? Do you find yourself using another language?
Bon, je parle français couramment, de temps en temps, seulement quand je voyage en France. So I only speak French usually when I am when I travel. My dream I'm working towards is to do a project in France. So we're working on that. No Italian, but Espanol, un poquito en español. I've got to do some practice. No practica mucho en español. Sorry, gang, but bastante. I can puedo comprender.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you.
All right, Bill Buchanan, next question.
Good morning, Joe. Bill Buchanan. I think I'm going to have to buy you a cup of coffee because I spent the years 1950 to 1952 as an inmate. I'm sorry, not an inmate, a student at the École Masséna in Nice, France. And so we've got a lot of notes to compare there. In 1969, I married a woman whose DNA, if you were able to trace DNA, would take us all the way back to Alsace, Lorraine. And for years now, I have promised her to take her back there to tour Alsace, Lorraine, because there's a likelihood that we could meet a member of her family who was wealthy, and they might write us into their will or something like, I don't know. So we're working on that. And then
Plan that trip.
Pardon me?
Plan that trip.
Well, that's what I'm kind of working around to. That's one of the things I need to talk to you about. But I also have some business interests and some travel threads that go up to Sonoma that you might want to discuss. One is the celebration of the 249th anniversary of the United States Marine Corps at the Jacuzzi Winery. That's on 26th October. But I have another interest up there. It's a client who has a winery that you might be interested to know about. He has a blog on, I think it's YouTube or something. Anyway, lots to talk about. But my question for you this morning is let's take the Alsace trip as a model. How do you go about finding, a good travel consultant who could help you put that together? You may be the guy. I don't know.
Well, so what I would say is, first and foremost, you can do some of your own research, right? And what I would suggest is do some research online and take a look at travel blogs. I would also take a look at, major newspapers, the New York Times, maybe even San Francisco, the Chronicle. Some of the national newspapers have great travel writers, but I find the Times is really good because they do the 36 hours in columns. And a lot of times, if you read them, they will actually give you tips for not only places to go and restaurants, but they'll also talk about potential tour guides. So I would do that. I'd also do some research on social media sites and sites like TripAdvisor, because today people are doing an awful lot of posting online around experiences, and literally it's shifting where people are going to go. So if you were to do some research on Alsace, online, you'd be able to find some. And then I would also connect with the French Tourist Bureau or the region of Alsace, and you'd be amazed at how much you could come up with. The other thing that I would say is, when Patricia Fripp and I and another friend have gone away, we do some digging before we go. We work on creating specialty experiences, but we also will hire tour guides. So, part of my rule is we hire a tour guide for 3 people. We would do a hop on and hop off tour, right, to get the lay of the land, but we are going to hire a tour guide for 3 people, and I'm going to do my research, because with 3 people, it's easier to get in and do some really amazing experiences that they won't do for a bigger group. It may cost you a little bit more, but we've done things, we've gone to the roof of Bilbao in Spain, to the museum, the Guggenheim Museum. I mean, again, just by doing some research, making some calls, asking people about, their best guides, and then what kind of specialty things can they do, and you'd be amazed at what people will be able to do for you.
Merci beaucoup.
De rien.
Hugh Coppin, who of course creates experiences taking people to Africa.
Joe, thank you for a really interesting and valuable presentation. I think often sometimes when you are in a presentation which seems to support or underline what you're doing, it makes you feel, yeah, this guy is absolutely right on, because it's some of the stuff we're doing. But I do take safaris to Africa. I grew up there, and so I've been going on safaris all my life. And I started, thinking about your whole step up from show and tell to engage to immerse. And most people, when they go on safari, it's a show and tell. You get driven around, then you go to the next place, you get driven around, you go to the next place. There is a level of engagement which is above that, where people start then going perhaps to a local village or whatever, but very few go to the third stage, which is the immersion. And that's where we have positioned ourselves, because I have been on so many safaris where people don't really get deeply into nature, conservation, the culture, people, and they come away without those lifelong memories. Oh, they come away with 10,000 photos, of which they may look at 100 over time, but they don't come away with the lifelong memories deeply embedded in their heart and soul. And so that's where and how we positioned what we're doing. And so what you've given me is a sense of, okay, I think we may be on the right track here. So thank you so much for what you gave us.
No, Hugh, you're most welcome. In fact, I should connect with you because Africa's on my bucket list. What I would also say that, given what you do, one of the key things with a safari or nature-based kinds of experiences, when you get to that third level, is not just I've seen and I've been engaged, but at the end of the day, that I care. In other words, that I am willing to care about the environment, the natural environment, and potentially helping some of these organizations in Africa or even in North America. That level of care, you hit the emotional bank account at a very core level.
Yeah, thank you.
Janelle Barlow, next question. Janelle, you'll have to unmute.
I always forget to do that. This has been a fantastic meeting, and all the Golden Gate Breakfast Club meetings are fantastic. It made me realize, listening to you, how many people are in your position. That is the ability to go to different places and create these experiences. There's a woman that I met in Las Vegas when I lived there. I was there 9 years ago. Her name is Maya Reyes, and I met her through the National Speakers Association. She's a remarkable woman. She's a former Miss Nevada. She was married to a basketball player, had children in Venice and then lived in France, wherever he played. So she ended up gathering languages. But the most amazing thing about her is her enthusiasm, her desire to give back to people. She's created a series of books, Club USA, and she takes these little 8th graders approximately, and she sends them all over the world, and they have to save the world. And her books, even though they're written for 8th graders, they are remarkable reads. I'd recommend you go to Amazon and just take a look at her materials. But the thing about her is, in terms of creating experiences, that she's got a Fripp kind of enthusiasm. I don't know if you've ever met her, Patricia Maya Reyes. I think you have, and you're a cousin. And like, for example, she's organized a whole bunch of troops to Cuba. I don't think she's doing that now because I think that's no longer possible. But she's very much connected to the gay community in Las Vegas, and she would gather these groups of people who were similar in interests and desires, and then take them off to Italy, Spain, France, and Cuba because of Spanish. She'd go to these places where she speaks the language and just creates these remarkable experiences for people, especially Cuba, because it's really hard for Americans to get into Cuba. I don't know if that's still the case, but I realize how many of us have this possibility to create experiences, and maybe we don't even know it. Not necessarily that you have to travel, but that it could be done. I mean, like that museum in Madison. I've been to Madison because my husband and my son, all his family went to school there. And I didn't know anything about the Mustard Museum. I had no idea. It makes me want to go back to Madison. There's a lot of interesting places in Madison. My family, which came in from Germany, they've got their name plastered on several different street signs in Madison. And I'd really like to go back and take a look at that. So I'm just eternally grateful. And Fripp, thank you so much for arranging this. This is, I don't even have to be there. I'm excited about going. It's just wonderful. Thank you so very, very much.
You're welcome, and
Okay,
tell
Janelle.
Barry I said hello.
Well, what we can all do, Janelle, your home creates wonderful experiences for your guests.
Yeah.
So you do that with your own chapter. So I think part of the inspiration from Joe's message is, how can we build this into our everyday lives? Now, another comment I would like Joe to make is, you went over when you were 14 to France. You are still actively involved and engaged with your French family.
Yes. So I'm really fortunate that it's been 50 years, believe it or not. I know I don't look it, but it's been 50 years. And have stayed in touch with my French family and other French friends. And we went back in May to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the French exchange program. And it's pretty remarkable that, for this amount of time, we've stayed connected, and that my French still works, thanks to French lessons, which I take on a pretty regular basis.
All right. Well, thank you, Joe. Let's see. Do we have any other burning questions or comments? Okay. I cannot see any burning questions at the moment. I am going to be passing over to Carl Walsh in just a minute, because I have to start packing up my computer and go downstairs. However, what I would, everyone knows, I think now, why I like going on vacation with you, and I know you're not taking any other strays. I would like to tell us about what you were doing in Houston, the stories with the ladies and the cakes.
All right. So one of the other areas where we've been doing some work since 2021 is in an area called Untold Stories. And these are with multicultural communities. We started to do some work in Louisville, Kentucky. We created a group of experiences called the Unfiltered Truth Collection. And this year in February, we released the Houston First Signature Experiences. So this is a collection of 5 African-American experiences. 3 of them are tied to African-American businesses. 2 of them are tied to African-American historic sites. But Fripp was mentioning an experience. So Lucy Pearls is a bakery in Houston, Texas. And the owner Nicole Morris, worked for her entire career on the railroad. And she now owns a bakery called Lucy Pearls. We worked with her to really uncover her story. Interesting story because she moved back to Houston in 2019 after retiring, and she really wasn't sure what her next act was going to be. She wasn't really ready to hang things up and just retire. Well, lo and behold, 6 months after she got back to Houston, she ended up finding out that the best man at she and her husband's wedding had died. And so she and the community, the church community, were putting on the meal after the funeral service. Well, interestingly enough, Nicole's mother, her nickname was Sweets. She died in 2012, and one of the things that she left Nicole was a series of recipe boxes. And the recipe boxes in 2012 got put away, but they were carried in the car, family car, every time they moved. Well, Nicole decided that since she was in charge of dessert for the after meal at the funeral, that she wasn't going to go to Costco like they asked her to, that she was going to break out the recipe box and start making the cakes and the pies. Well, the pastor called her and said, Sister Nicole, are you all set with going to Costco and getting the cakes? And she said, you know, I need to do something special. She said, it's really important. I'm going to actually make the cakes and the pies. Well, the pastor asked her said, Sister Nicole, do you even know how to turn on the oven? And she said, well, Pastor, if it doesn't work out, I'll go to Costco. Well, Sister Nicole not only made those cakes and pies, but ended up, because of the popularity of them, a friend of hers invited her to work with her at a farmer's market. And she started selling her cakes and pies every single week. Within 6 months, she started an internship with a local bakery to learn the ins and outs of baking. She knew business, but not the ins and outs of baking. Today, she has a multi-million dollar business, but needed a way to tell her story. Her story is in an experience called Southern Sweets and Soulful Stories. And she takes you on her life journey from starting the bakery and 4 different desserts. So you taste sweet potato pie to learn about resilience in the African American community. You taste peach cobbler, which is a dessert as a child, which was particularly memorable. You also, try 2 other desserts that are also important to her. One was called the Atomic Cake, and there's a bakery outside of Chicago that makes the Atomic Cake. And then finally, the specialty cake, which was made by her aunt, who was her closest confidant. But during this experience, you learn about her life story. The amazing thing is, as she says, I had no idea that my mother would leave me generational wealth in a recipe box. So again, uncovering these untold stories from communities, African American, in Richmond, Asian communities, again, that are part of the fabric of each of these communities, so that people can share, see, connect with other communities different from themselves.
Joe, what's the name of the book again? Southern Sweets and what?
So the experience is called Southern Sweets and Soulful Stories when you go to Houston, and the bakery is called Lucy Pearls.
All right. Yes. You know, Joe, what my wife and I have done over the years is we'll go to a new country and we'll do the, if it's Tuesday, this must be Belgium kind of tour, just so that we can get a feel for the place. And then we'll go back a year or two later and go to the places that we really want to go. Now, what you offer is a third level where we actually get to dig down and work with, or at least get to meet people, regular people, not a tourist event. An example is one that we did. My wife is a Filipino, and her last name is Lorenzana, and we tracked her name. There actually is a little town close to Pisa where the name originated, and so we took her and her sisters to that little town. It has a population of less than 1,000. And we spent a whole day with a family in a family-run restaurant there, and it was absolutely delightful, a huge experience for us and for her. And when she showed them her ID and that her name was Lorenzana, they nearly fell on the floor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You're exactly right. It's that people connection, I feel, more than anything else, right? And the two aspects that get to what I call transformational experiences are nature and people, either individual elements or combined together. Most powerful.
Yep.
Absolutely
Great.
most powerful.
Anyone else have any questions or comments for Joe? And just for reference, Joe, how do we get in touch with you and the experiences that you provide?
So I just put my email in the chat.
Oh, good.
So
Yes.
joe@venetocollaboratory.com. So I will be happy to connect with you. This week I'm in Elkhart, Indiana, the third largest capital of Amish people, doing some work here, zooming in, and that's the quilt in the background. So that little lady with the Amish sugar cookies, I think, is smiling down and having a hand in where I'm going and what I'm doing.
Yeah, great. Well, and as I said, I think you and Hugh Coppin are a marriage made in heaven, and you guys should get together and work something out.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah,
Love to
great.
do it, Joe.
Okay, anyone else? Comments or questions before we sign off?
Thank you
I
very
love
much.
it.
Joe, I don't see your email in the email address in the chat.
Yeah, it's there.
You can only see if you were here when they put it out there. So.
It's in there, and you can also get it. You can get me through Patricia. Either one. She knows how to track me down.
Google.
Or
Go on to
Google.
Google.
Yeah.
Or Google. Veneto
No, I'll
Collaboratory.
find you on LinkedIn.
Super. I'm on
There you go.
LinkedIn. Absolutely.
Excellent.
Thank you so much. This was fascinating.
All right, then. Thank you, Joe. Great, inspiring for us getting out of that run-of-the-mill vacation that always exhausts the hell out of us, and we don't really have any of those experiences. So thank you everybody for attending today, and we will see you next week.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
Pleasure to be with you.
Bye all.
Thank you.